What's up, Internet? You're tuned into this week's edition of the Comics Pals Image Comics Reviews. Courtesy of Image Comics, we get their books early, so we get to do reviews for you day and date every Wednesday. This week on the chopping block, we've got King Spawn number 2 and Radiant Black number 8. We are going to kick things off with King Spawn number 2, but before we do that, let me just say, I'm Pete, and on this week's reviews, I'm joined by Kale.
I'm King Spawn, actually.
Okay, King Kale, and Phil.
I'm that baby Spawn.
How long until we get baby Spawn, you think?
6 months.
Gaga.
Okay. Littlest Spawn. It's like the only market that they're not trying to hit is YA, right? So
I am Chibi Spawn.
Chibi Spawn. Yeah, that'll work out. Of course, we're the Comics Pals. We do a weekly comic book podcast where we get together and talk about all the goings-on in the comic book industry and all your favorite characters wherever you can find them. And like I said, we're here doing image reviews every Wednesday. We've got our Marvel, DC, and everything else dropping on Thursdays. And for right now anyway, the latest season of We Watch, which is our show where we watch other shows or movies and then review them, funnily enough. So if you want to go check out our thoughts on What If, those are also dropping on Thursdays, so you can catch that tomorrow as well. So, and right, of course, we're all over the web. You know, wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. You know, come subscribe to the RSS feed. Come follow us on YouTube. Give us a like. Subscribe to the channel. We're very close to having 420 subscribers, like very close. And I would love if this week we could get over that mark. So,
we're going to have a big weed episode to celebrate.
Big old weed episode. Sure. Speaking of big old weeds, let's pull on this one. This is, of course, King Spawn number 2 with the creative team of Sean Lewis on the main script, with Todd McFarlane offering additional dialogue and helping out with the plot. We have art by Javi Fernandez. We have colors by
FCO Placencia.
I never remember how to say. Is it FCO or is it FICO?
I mean, it says FCO.
Okay, whatever. It's FCO Placencia. And then lettering by World Design. It
Sure is a book.
It sure was. And I think I am officially done. I gotta say.
Yeah?
The last time we reviewed a Spawn book, I think it was King Spawn. It might have been King Spawn number 1. But I remember Sean and I were talking about it. Sean has really been having fun with these books, and I was kind of saying, I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's not quite landing for me. I don't know if maybe it's just that I need more time to get acclimated, or if it's just not landing with me. And I think this issue just cemented for me that I just don't think Spawn is for me. He's never been a character that I've been able to jive with, despite trying a few times. And this era is just not doing me any favors. I feel like specifically the conversation that Spawn keeps having with She-Spawn and Mark, his like supporting characters, it literally feels like it's the same conversation every episode where they're like, Spawn, why are you so mad? Why are you such a dick? You need us. Like, and he's like, no, I don't. And he's like, but I do. And it's just like, I'm not having fun. I'm just not. And I don't want to shit on the book. Like, I don't want to, like, you know, turn this into like a anti-Spawn parade or anything. It's just not working for me. And I think I'm done trying.
Last time we talked about Spawn was 321. That was 2 weeks ago. And that had a lot of Todd McFarlane dialogue. And you gave the credits to this one, King Spawn number 2, where it says offering additional dialogue is Todd McFarlane. And it's like, are we sure he didn't do all the dialogue? Because good God.
It felt like it. Yeah. I actually, when I was reading this, I had a thought halfway through it. I was like, is this another Todd McFarlane one, or is this Sean? And yeah, it's just dense, man. There's so much.
I struggle to believe anyone other than Todd McFarlane did the dialogue on this.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's just like the whole like, I don't know, like murdering kids, and it's like it's very heavy, and like, and I don't feel like it doesn't feel like it's paying off for me, right? Like the investment into all of the like, you know, he's super angry, and there's like this definitely like, you know, this very like heavy, like they're murdering children to get Spawn out in the open and it's going to be another war brewing. And it's like, I don't know. I'm struggling to get invested in anything. Like, I feel like when you're just like left and right, just murdering kids every other issue, it loses its impact after a while, you know?
Yes,
It doesn't,
absolutely.
It doesn't feel like, you know, there was like a thing where like a elementary school got bombed and like it just feels like we're doing that again. And like, I think Sean and I talked about it at the time, and it's like you compare that to something like Civil War, right, where that moment has so much impact because that's not supposed to happen, and like it makes the stakes feel more real. Here, the fact that the stakes are already so high, but like they're constantly so high, and it's just like it feels like blasé at this point. Like, yeah, all right, like the world's in jeopardy, heaven and hell are fighting over it, and it's like, okay, yeah, I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing too with this issue is the climax of this issue takes place at what seems to be a second staged January 6th insurrection at the White House.
At the Capitol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know where the White House is?
Nope.
But it feels like it's like you say, it's taking the impact away from it to try to manifest that in the book and for Spawn, but it doesn't have that impact.
Yeah. It you have to start small to work your way up to big, and when we're starting big like that, maybe this will go bigger, but it just feels needlessly grimdark and edgy, and I know we're going to get a lot of
Feels like Spawn.
We're going to get a lot of angry comments saying, you know, that's the point, and I understand that, but ultimately at the end of the day, I don't think that's for this type of books for any of us three.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately where I'm at with it. Is like, I'm not inherently against a little grimdark. You know, like there's certainly examples of stuff like that that's played for me fine. But I don't know. I think between not liking what's been going on in the main Spawn storyline and then, you know, having some of the other books we've read have a bunch of like backup stories about other characters that I know even less about and I'm even less attached to. It's just, I know this is for somebody. We get comments on every one of the Spawn reviews that we do. Like there's a huge audience out there that's digging this, and you know, I don't mean to speak ill of it, right? But it's just not landing for me, and I think I'm at a point where I found myself struggling to get through it.
Yeah.
For the review, and I don't want to bring that energy to any review, you know.
And it's just the dialogue is just so clunky. I think that's honestly the hardest part. If it was just like better structured, it might be easier to read. Like the way these characters talk to each other, where it's like they're mad at each other all the time for for kind of contrived reasons.
Yeah, because like even there was like the moment where like Spawn gets mad and he like smashes the computer thing and then he leaves, and then she Spawn like he tells Mark to do something, he's like, cool, I'm on it, and then she's like, oh, like that's all you have to say, like nice backbone. And it's just like, why is every conversation a conflict? Like everything, like everyone's just mad all the time, and like I get it, like Spawn's an asshole, but it's like, I don't know, leave. He keeps telling you to leave. I don't know, like
I also like that his caption there is, I don't like outbursts like that.
They're weak. It's like, but I have an outburst every issue.
Tell us why you like it, people at home. You know, maybe you can dissuade us and explain why we're crazy.
I mean, the art is incredible.
Yeah, it looks great.
I mean, if you don't read it, then there is a reasonably coherent story here.
And I think a big part of it is like Spawn is definitely an artist's book. Like it's a series that I think is most remembered for its style and its aesthetic and, you know, the vibe of it. But yeah.
Like even this page, this ultra patriot page of Spawn with a giant machine gun standing between two American flags, like that's cool as shit. It
does look
just
good.
is. Like
It does look good.
It is a very pretty book. There's the one page where Spawn is getting lit up with bullets. That visually looks very pretty.
Yeah, I think from an art perspective, there's a lot of really good work here between Javi Fernandez and FCO Placencia. Like, there's definitely some really good work there.
But then it's corny seeing Spawn with like a machine gun with an American flag behind him.
Yeah, sure.
you guys are probably the wrong people to ask, but does the reveal of the villain do anything for you? Do you know who he is?
No.
So he is in issue 5 of Spawn. He's a child murderer and a pedophile who Spawn kills very early on.
Okay.
Like hunts down and kills. And I guess he's coming for Spawn.
That's kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's one of those things. I don't know if he's come back before. I Googled to make sure I was right, and it said he is a recurring character. So I don't know if he's come back for, other things before or not.
No idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're asking the wrong guy.
All right. So yeah, let us know what you thought about King Spawn #2. And we'll probably be back again next month, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into Radiant Black #8. Of course, this is the creative team of Kyle Higgins on writing, Marcelo Costa on art, Natalia Marquez did the colors this time around, and Becca Carey on letters. This is I like this issue. I feel like now that we're at a point where there's like the team dynamic is kind of being established and the stakes are a little bit more clear, we're starting to have an idea of what the rules of the powers are and some of those things. I'm finding a lot more to connect with issue to issue. And, there's like a pretty significant amount of motion in this one in terms of just like there actually being some decent action, like getting a little bit of resolution, although it only really raising more questions with this fight with the purple line-faced guy who we encountered a couple issues back, and then the tease of kind of seemingly a lot more conflict to come at the end of the issue. I thought this was fun. Yeah.
What do you think, Cal? I'm curious what you thought.
I feel similar to how you feel about King Spawn, Pete. This year it's just moving too slow.
Yeah.
Like reading this, I'd forgotten what happened, and all I could think was, man, I wish I could read more so that I know where it's going, or so that I can get to where it's going, so that I know I like it.
I see.
But for now, I'm just like, I'm bored because this is all stuff that I feel like we've seen before.
I get that. I don't think this book benefits a ton from the month-to-month schedule that it's been.
I was gonna say, I know it's impossible, but if this was like a weekly release, I think there'd be more heat.
For me, it comes down to what I've said all along is it's just so early on. It was just so broken up that I'm not interested.
I feel like this stuff should have been the first arc.
Yeah.
I know that it wanted to lull us into that false sense of security to have that big moment in issue 4. But I think that didn't land for most of the people on the panel. I liked it, but I've been the warmest on this book, and I'm not a diehard for it. I don't think this is one of the biggest, best books of the year right now. But I feel like it has a lot of potential. Like, it's doing things that I like, and I feel like it's putting in work that is going somewhere, and like I have that faith. But I get not feeling jazzed about it month to month.
And that's the thing is I feel you. I want to like this book, but it's just not here.
It's not.
You know,
that's why I was curious how you felt about it, because I think a lot of this team dynamic stuff seems like it's your wheelhouse.
Yeah,
it's like a Toku Sentai kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Tokusatsu. But yes,
excuse me. I actually thought this issue was fine. I didn't actually have a problem with it. I thought it was pretty well paced too, and I understand how this has been a peaks and valleys type of book, and the peaks have not been high. But I thought this issue was totally fine. I liked the way it started with in Moscow. It was a more earthbound kind of character moments, and then we get like a reasonable climax. It ends on a decent cliffhanger too. I think this is a pretty good structured comic book. I don't really have any issues. I understand that maybe Kyle Higgins has burned some of that goodwill, but I'm willing to wipe the slate clean to see where it goes from here. I'm actually not out at all.
That's where I'm at with it. I think in a big way is that like it's only gotten better for me as we've gotten more information and gotten more focused. And I think like some of the inconsistency over the last couple issues, I think you can probably, point to a certain amount of it being because of what happened with Marcelo Costa getting injured. Sure. And like them needing to have 2 issues that kind of slowed things down and kind of got away from the main narrative at different times. So like, I get that. Like, it's broken up the momentum quite a bit. But, like, the last couple issues where they've all been together and they've been working against a singular thing has been working for me. Because, like, now it feels like this book is, like, in a rhythm. And if you asked me, like, well, what's Radiant Black about? I can tell you now to some degree. Like, have we gotten to the real meat of the story? No. I still think we're pretty much in the preamble, and that's not good. 8 issues,
which is insane. 8 issues in.
Yeah.
This is like, to Kale's point, this should have been like issue 3 or 4. But I don't know if I'll say I have faith, but I'm willing to see where it goes.
I'll say this. I think this book would have really benefited from doing the oh my gosh, I never remember this term, and Tyler said it on the reviews last Thursday. It's like there's a like Latin phrase for when a story starts in the middle of the story. It's like the media plot or something like that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
Yes. It's starting in like media res when you're in the middle of the action.
That's it. Thank you. That's the phrase I was looking for. I think this story would have benefited from that. Like, I think if it had started with because if you recall, remember the original protagonist whose name I can't remember right now.
Nathaniel.
Okay, I was thinking that was the guy we're following now.
Or Nathan.
Isn't Nathan's not the black-haired guy?
No.
Okay. The original the original Radiant Black, I remember there was there was like a thing where he saw a version of himself.
Yeah.
Like in the future and fully kitted out and everything. I think if they had given us a starting point that was all of the Radiants like together as a team, like fighting this big alien conflict, and you're like, whoa, there's like this whole war going on. Like, what the fuck? And then it snapped back to him in the car, like looking at the phone and crying and everything and like freaking out about his bank account. I think that, like, if we had gotten some of this earlier, I feel like we might not have that same fatigue. Because we spent so much time set dressing that, like, the story's just getting going 8 issues in.
Or fucking even if we started that way and then, like, got through the arc but didn't know who Radiant Black was, and then in issue, 6 or whatever, the end of the first arc, we find out that it's not who we think it is, or we find out who it is, and then start the second arc with Nathan, and he gets the power, and then we tell his story. Like, that's compelling. That you know what, that fucking third issue where he has his writing day or whatever, that would have made sense.
Yeah, there's been a lot of plot structuring issues, and it's everything Kale said and everything we've said throughout all 8 reviews of this is just the pace is so slow. If we did do a media res start, like start in the middle of action and work our way backwards, at least that, I don't know, at least it gives the audience something to look forward to. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm at the point where now I feel like I do have things to look forward to. But
it took a long time.
It
took 8 months to get there.
Yeah, right, exactly. And like, I don't know. Like, I don't think that's inherently a problem. It's just, I think about early on, right? Like, I made the comparison, and I mean, not only me, right? Image made the comparison to Invincible. And Invincible is a book that takes a little bit before you get to the big reveal and the big moment. But I remember reading that book when I started reading it years later, and I was able to read it in bigger chunks. And I remember I read the first 6 issues maybe the first time I sat down to read it. And I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Like, this is like a cool, fun superhero story. And like, it gave me enough to grab onto. And then I read the next however many issues I needed to get to the reveal, and then I was in. But that was 2 sessions of reading in the span of a weekend, not 8 months of waiting for that moment and not knowing when or if it's going to come. So I get that frustration,
This book might lend itself to trade waiting. I understand that.
Yeah.
And oftentimes Tom King books seem to follow in that pattern as well. Some books are just like that. I think it's too difficult to gauge whether or not this series is like that, though, because we're not objective enough to actually know if it is better that way. And probably needs another 6 issues to come out, which is unreasonable request for a monthly reader.
Well, and given that the first trade is out and it's everything I've complained about with this series, it might not be.
I mean, I think it
might
will
take 2 trades.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think it will be better in trade, but I still think you might need to read 2 trades before you get to the meat, and like that's not great. Like, like that's not a good spot to be. And like ultimately that doesn't necessarily matter. Like if we get to the end of this volume, right? Because we're at the very beginning of this volume now. Like if the second volume sticks the landing and then the third volume is like fucking amazing hot fire, we'll probably look back and be like, all right, like we got there, and maybe it wasn't the most graceful build, but the pieces were laid and it ended up paying off. And that's fine, but for a book that's, a new book that's trying to find an audience and trying to make a name for itself and trying to, compete with, frankly, I think a lot of other really, really strong releases over the last year, it's tougher. I think it's as much as I have tried to give this book the benefit of the doubt and champion it as much as I can. It is hard for me to come at it with the same enthusiasm that I do about some of the other books that we've recommended from this show, right? Like I would tell anybody to go out and pick up Made in Korea, right? That book has been great issue to issue. And I think, not even knowing how it ends or where it goes, right? Like I feel confident enough that I've enjoyed it so much and that it stood out to me that I'm like, go get it. Whereas with this book, while I've had fun with it, it does feel more like a book I would say like, yeah, maybe trade weight, but even so, it's hard for me to say right now, Like, I don't dislike it. There are things I like about it, but it's hard for me to recommend that you use your limited resources and time on this versus some of the other really strong books that I've enjoyed this year, And maybe that's more to say about the books that are coming out this year than it is about Radiant Black, but in a softer year, maybe. But I think like when I look at like, like I said, Made in Korea or like Beta Ray Bill or the Swamp Thing or, I feel like there's so many other similarly length stories I could point to and say, I feel like you're going to get more out of this or more bang for your buck following this specific book rather than Radiant Black. Whether or not that I am having fun with it, like I want to see it succeed. And I think like all 3 of us have said that like There's a tremendous amount of promise to this story, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I think we're still here for it. But that
And
doesn't
Kyle
mean
Higgins
that,
has chops too.
yeah, and it's a good creative team. Like, I like the art a lot. I think the script is genuinely pretty funny, like, often. There are a lot of things that are above average, but I don't feel like it has ended up amounting to more than the sum of its parts yet. And 8 issues in, that sucks. And I think something that I thought about today while reading this is I wouldn't give this same level of rope to a book from Marvel or DC. It's the fact that it's a creator-owned book that I'm like, oh, like, I want to see where it goes and I want to see it develop and get. But, like, if this same caliber of book was, I don't know, like an Iron Man story or something like that,
It would have been pulled already.
or at least I would have bounced off of it and been like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. So, I don't know. I'm still enjoying Radiant Black. I'm still, like, here for it. Like, I think, like Phil said, like, I'm definitely not off the train yet. But I also think that all of the criticisms that Cale has levied and, continued to levy are fair. And, like, for week to week right now, it is tough. And I think a couple weeks ago, I was still feeling a little more bullish on it, but I'm starting to feel that fatigue now a little bit 8 issues in. And I feel like we need to pick up the pace, because even though I liked this issue and it did accomplish quite a bit compared to some of the last ones we've gotten, it's like it still just doesn't quite feel like enough. Like, we understand the stakes of this war and some of these other things, but, like, I feel like this book needs its, like, mic drop moment. And I don't know if it thought that killing Nathan was that, or, seemingly killing him, right? But I don't know that had the impact it needed to have. And from there, what has that really amounted to? A little bit of friction between Radiant Black and Radiant Red, but
Not really.
like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like we gotta make a turn here. We gotta get to an issue, one singular issue that I can point to and say, this is S tier. This was worth the 8 issue investment. This is where we're going from here on out, and I am on board. That's the moment I really feel like we still need with this book. And at least for us, I think all of us, right? Not even just the 3 of us on this panel. It just hasn't quite gotten there yet.
Until next time, I guess. We'll see where they go.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, I like I said, I'm still looking forward to it. I'm still going to give it the benefit of the doubt. But for right now, it's, I don't know. I want to see it do more than it has. So, yeah, I guess by default, this is my pick of the week. I did not like Spawn. I would not suggest that you pull Spawn. But I think this is the first time that I've said that a book is my pick of the week, but I would also suggest that you probably trade weight it.
There you go. First time for everything.
There we go. So if you want to write in and let us know what you thought about Kingspawn number 2 or Radiant Black number 8, there's a bunch of ways you can do that. Of course, you can write to us in the comments down below. You can write to us at thecomicspals@gmail.com. You can come join our Discord where the conversation keeps rolling every week, and we will read your thoughts on the next proper episode of the Comics Pals. So if you've been writing in on any of these image reviews or any of the other comic stuff that we've been putting out, that's where we read your comments. So if you want to hear us respond to your thoughts, go check out the main show if you haven't before. It's a good time, and I think it's worth your time anyway. So until next time, I've been Pete. He's been Phil. He's been Cale. We've been the Comics Pals. See you next week. Thanks again, Image.
Yarg! I be pirate Spawn.